Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark and the clouds return after the rain. When the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men stoop, when the grinders cease because they are few and those looking through the windows grow dim. When the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades, when people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint. When people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, when the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags itself along and desire no longer is stirred. Then people go to their eternal home and mourners go about the streets. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind.
Well, what do you make of that? I get the first verse and I get the last verse, but grasshoppers and almond trees and keepers and strong men, what's it all about? Anyone got any suggestions? Time passes. Yeah. This is Solomon. He has had a rich life. He has achieved more than anybody else could ever desire. And he comes to the end of his life and he says, it's all trash. It was a waste of breath. The only thing worth doing is remember God in the days of your youth. And then he goes on to this very witty, if you can unpack it, description, creative description of the ravages of old age. So we've got, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Old age can be painful and sorrowful, can't it? Verse 2. You got verse 2 there? Oh, sorry. Okay. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark. He's actually going through the parts of the body that are breaking down. So what's he talking about here? Sun and the light, the moon and the stars grow dark. It's eyesight, isn't it? You possibly imagine got a cataract or something and everything's growing fuzzy. And the clouds return after the rain. That's a bit cryptic, that one, but imagine this. It's your wedding day and it's raining. But there's a bright light. There's a little bit of blue sky comes in and the sun comes out for 10 minutes and then it starts raining again. Blah. And I think what he's talking about perpetual ailments of old age. You just get over one thing and the next thing hits you. Verse 3, when the keepers of the house tremble. Who does the housekeeping? Your arms, don't they? The keepers of the house tremble and the strong men stoop. When the grinders cease because they are few. What do you reckon that one is? Your teeth have fallen out. Okay. And those looking through the window grow dim. That's your eyes again, isn't it? Okay. When the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades, again, possibly you keep your lips tight shut so you don't dribble when you're eating. When people rise up at the sound of birds, sleeplessness, which is a bit pointless because you can't hear the birds anyway. but all their songs grow faint. When people are afraid of heights, so old people scared of who's going to knock on the door and what's going to happen, and I won't go out in case something goes wrong, things like that. Isn't it interesting that when you're young, you fall over? When you're old, you have a fall. And they're afraid of dangers in the streets. When the almond tree blossoms, do you know what color an almond tree blossom is? It's white, yes. So what's he talking about? The almond tree blossoms, okay. It's a clever, cryptic, funny language, and it's meant to be. The grasshopper drags itself along and desire no longer is stirred. I think he's talking about libido, isn't he? Then people go to their eternal home and mourners go about in the streets. God's providence that end of life and funerals are on our hearts at the moment. Seems that every time I come here, somebody else has died. Ken McLean, dear George, John. And it reminds us of our impermanence here. And it's not going to be fun, but as Christians, we know that there's a purpose to it because there's an end in sight. And he says, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. Somebody should write a song about that, shouldn't they? If it was Moses, he'd have written a song. But how about something like this? Remember your Maker in the days of your youth, before age and frailness creep in. When you're short on suggestions and long in the tooth, and your mind can't remember a thing. Want to give it a try? Remember your Maker in the days of your youth, before age and frailness creep in. When you're short on suggestions and long in the tooth, and your mind can't remember a thing. I wonder what Solomon would say if he was writing about old age today. I guess we've all got our old age anecdotes. I went to the audiologist the other day, and he said, I'm going to test your hearing. I'm going to whisper a number in your left ear, and you tell me what the number is. So I said, okay. Have you whispered it yet? He said, okay, I'll try the other ear. This was better. I said, 6. He said, okay, we've established that you're deaf in both ears. So he prescribed hearing aids. I went to the GP. Have you noticed how young doctors are? Oh, it's absolutely. I went to the GP and this young chick from Newcastle came out. I said, does your mummy know you're here? And she said, sit down, Mr. Barnes. Tell me what the trouble is. I said, oh, doc, I'm getting old and I'm forgetting things. She said, right. Can you give me an example of something you've forgotten? They study for 6 years to ask a question like that. So I decided to play along. I said, yeah, I rang Centrelink and had a lovely conversation with this lady. She said, your call is important to us. Please hold the line until your call is no longer important to you. I went to the pharmacist and I said, look, I'm getting old and I don't like it. Have you got something for me? He said, yes, I've got a pill. You can take it every day for the rest of your life. And I opened the box and counted the number of pills that were in it. 2. I said, what do I do with this? He said, take the blue pill tonight and take the red pill if you wake up in the morning. Remember your maker in the days of your youth, before age and frailness creep in, when you're short on suggestions and long in the tooth, and your mind can't remember a thing. Let's get serious. There is a take-home message to Ecclesiastes 12. Last week over morning tea, we were talking about the idea that a person might put off getting right with God until they were really, really, really old. And we said that is such a dopey idea. And it's a dopey idea on 2 counts. Firstly, do you see that in it there's an assumption that God is going to make your life miserable? So he's something to be avoided as long as possible. And we know, and we are living testimony to the fact that it's absolutely the opposite. God comes in. What a wonderful change in my life has been wrought since Jesus came into my heart. And we are showing the world how great, how absolutely beautiful it is to be living under the blessing of God. The second reason it's dopey is that when I get a grasp of what Jesus went through to bring me to himself, how he left his home in glory and crossed the galaxies and took on flesh and let himself be torn apart and humiliated. This is God being humiliated and broken, and he did it for me. I don't want to push him on a shelf. I want to run to him. I want to grab him. I want to cling to him and say, thank you, thank you. I give my whole self to you. And I want to do it now. And I think that's the message of Ecclesiastes. For most of us, you think the horse may have bolted on your youth. If you can walk and talk and drive a car, you've still got an awful lot of youth left. And in fact, I think that us in the later part of employment or the early part of retirement actually have a lot of potential to serve God. And I know that I'm in amongst people who are actually doing that. Good on you for that. Let's remember our Maker and do it well. How about I sing the choruses? Sorry, I sing the verses and you sing the chorus. Okay? We're allowed to laugh in this church. Is that right? Remember your Maker in the days of your youth, before age and frailness creep in, when you're short on suggestions and long in the tooth, and your mind can't remember a thing, and you're losing your sight, and you wake in the night, your arms and your legs start to shake, and your hair's turning white, you can no longer bite, and the candles cost more than the cake. So remember your Maker in the days of your youth, before age and frailness creep in, when you're short on suggestions and the tooth, and thing, and the talking's too soft, and the music's too loud, and the print on the page is too small, and it's got headphones to stifle the sound, 'cause it's not really music at all. Remember your maker in the days of your youth, before age and frailness creep in, when you're short on suggestions and long in the tooth, and your mind can't remember a thing, and your prostate's too large and your ego's too small, the cholesterol's right off the page, and the doctor says, yikes, this don't look good at all. Still, it's not bad for someone your age. So remember your maker in the days of your youth, before age and frailness creep in, when you're short on suggestions and long in the tooth, and your mind can't remember a thing. Now I look back in wonder at the years that are past, and the path where your kindness has led. And I thank you for calling and holding me fast, and the words that the wise man once said. He said, remember your maker when you're healthy and smart, and people admire you a lot. Remember the price that he paid for your heart, and give him the best years you've got. Don't you want to thank him? Oh, thank you, Lord God, for making us, for holding us, for the incredible price you paid for us. And Lord, keep us true to you all our days, for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse, in sickness and in health. Keep us, Lord, with you. Amen.